Hey everyone, this is MusicTechHelpGuy, and welcome to part 6 of my Logic Pro 10 101 course. In this video, we're going to start working with flex time. So we'll use flex time to tighten up the timing in the rhythm and lead guitars. We'll use the polyphonic flex mode or algorithm to quantize instruments that play more than one note at a time, such as the guitar. And we'll talk about manually creating, deleting, and adjusting flex markers. So in between videos, I tracked a guitar solo on the song, and for the channel strip setting, I just duplicated one of the rhythm tracks, and then in the pedal board plugin, I just turned on this vintage drive pedal to give me a bit more gain to work with. I also pulled down the level of all of the other tracks in the session significantly so that I could hear my guitar solo over the rest of the tracks while recording. All right, so let's give this guitar solo a listen. As you can see, I've tracked it in 4 different parts. It's on 2 different tracks right now, but by the time we're done, we're going to time correct it, and then we're going to condense it all down to one channel. So let's give this a listen. Yeah, so I really like the solo, but the problem is when I play solos, especially when I play solos, my timing kind of goes out the window sometimes. So we'll use flex time to correct the timing of this, and we'll edit all 4 of these clips together. But before we do that, let's worry about our rhythm section. So our drummer and our bass and our keys are all perfectly in time because they've been quantized, or at least all of our MIDI regions have been quantized. The drummer tracks in the very first video, you may recall that I had them follow one of the guitar tracks. Now we're still going to keep this on, but what we're going to do is we're going to use flex time to really make both of the left and right rhythm guitars be right on the grid and be right in the pocket so they match up, especially with the bass, and then the drummer will automatically adjust its timing to the new adjustments that we make with flex time. So let's really make these rhythm guitars on point. All right, so first what we're going to do is we're going to show and enable flex. So the way you do that is you click right here. You can also hit Command F to do the same. And then to enable flex on the guitar tracks, you click on this icon right here. And what it'll do is it'll automatically analyze the transient material, the percussive material, basically where the front end of notes are. Now, it's not perfect. We're going to have to go through and do some manual editing, but it is relatively useful for identifying transients. So you can see that it's identifying with these transient markers the front end of notes. You can kind of see that on the grid, the vast majority of the guitar is close to 1/8 notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag over this whole clip, and I'm going to go up to my region inspector up here, and I'm going to choose a quantization value. When you turn on flex time on an audio track, you can now quantize that audio from here. So instead of choosing quantize off, I'm going to choose quantize 1/8 note. And all of the notes are going to snap to their nearest 1/8 note. Now, we're still going to have to go through and do some manual editing, but this is a good starting point. Now, another thing you'll notice is the flex mode right here. Now, it says flex time automatic, and it's chosen polyphonic. But there's a few others. There's monophonic, slicing, rhythmic, polyphonic, which was chosen, speed, and tempophone. And there's also flex pitch, which we'll talk about in the next video. Polyphonic is used for instruments that play more than one note at a time. So guitar is definitely one of those, at least rhythm guitar is. Rhythmic is typically used for percussive material. Sometimes I've used it for real, like bright, clean percussive guitar as well. Slicing is also used for drums, and monophonic is used for material that only plays one note at a time, like vocals. Speed and tempophone are used for special effects. We're not really going to go over those in this video, but for electric guitar, we're going to want to use polyphonic. And one of the things I've found in the past is if monophonic doesn't sound great, go ahead and just go ahead and use polyphonic, and it'll usually sound fine. Another thing you can do that you want to make sure is on, in older versions of Logic, it didn't always automatically turn this on, but when you choose polyphonic, make sure that you choose this complex checkbox here. under the track options. And what that does is it pumps more CPU power into the analysis and into the time stretching and compression. And speaking of that, anything that is a brighter color has been compressed or shortened. Anything that's got like a gray color to it has been expanded or stretched. And anything in its original color, and this blue color, is roughly the same length. No time stretching or compression was applied. So again, you can see the before and the after, and how some of these notes are locking right into the grid. So let's do the same thing for our second guitar here too. I'll go up to Quantize. I'll choose an eighth note. And there we go. Let's give this a listen and make sure everything sounds all right. All right, so here we've got a bit of incorrect time compression expansion in the left guitar. Let me play that just by itself. It doesn't really sound right. This note needs to go more over here. Now, one thing you can do is you can grab any of these transient markers and create an actual flex marker, and you can grab those flex markers and move them wherever you want. Just like other edits, they also snap to the grid. So I'm going to go up to my snap modes up here, and I'm going to choose division. Now, the extent to how crazy you want to go with these edits is completely up to you. You can choose to do less manual editing or more manual editing and make more work for yourself. And it also depends on how really on the grid you want the music to sound. But sometimes there's a careful sort of in between where you don't want your music to be so quantized that it just sounds completely robotic and lacks any life or feeling to it. So there's a careful balance, but with rock and roll, with like commercial rock like this, it usually turns out okay. But if you have like acoustic music, acoustic guitar generally doesn't sound really that great, like super quantized. So let's listen to the rest of this. I'm going to go through and I'm going to do some more manual editing and just fix some wrong notes here and there. Yeah, so there's kind of like some weirdness there. Sometimes it helps just to remove flex markers. Yeah, sometimes it really helps to remove flex markers. There's another one that's kind of weird there. By the way, one thing I'm doing here, you see I'm scrolling left and right to keep up with the playhead. If you click on this icon right here, it automatically catches the playhead, and the scrolling will automatically happen as the playhead gets to the next, gets to the end of the edge of the window rather. We've got some weirdness going on here though. Yeah, so again, it comes down to how perfect and super quantized you want your music to sound. So what I'm going to do off screen is I'm going to go through the entire left and right guitar tracks, and I'm going to clean up all of these flex edits, and I'll be right back. All right, so a few things I wanted to bring up. I'm almost done. I'm at around the solo section, and one of the cool features of the eraser tool is that you can use the eraser tool to drag over multiple flex markers and turn them back into just transient markers. So that's a cool feature if you need to delete multiples at a time. The way I like to delete them is I just double click on them, but you can also click on this little X icon above each marker to get rid of them as well. Yeah, and so again, like I said before, it comes down to how perfect you want everything to be and how perfectly in time you want everything to be. You'll also notice that sometimes Logic will put flex markers where they don't need to be, like right here. This is all one chord. We don't need two flex markers in there. So sometimes you'll find yourself just deleting unnecessary, erroneous flex markers. Yeah, here's another point where we can use that eraser tool to get rid of multiples. And then line the whole riff back up here. And then here's another one that needs to go. Here's another one that needs to go. Now, sometimes this will happen too. It'll put the flex marker in front of the transient. It's very obvious here where the transient is. So what you can do is delete the flex marker, and then click to create another flex marker on the transient, and then move this wherever you want it to go. Here's another one where the transient's not on the right spot. We can delete the current one, create a new flex marker, and then move that up to be in time. Here's one where both of these are not on the right point. So we'll create new transient markers, or new flex markers for these, and lock them in time. So I've got the whole thing edited up. Let's listen to what this sounds like with the drums and everything in now. Yeah, so it's not that it was bad before, like really out of time or anything. It's just slightly, ever so slightly more on the grid and more in time. So now let's go over to our guitar solo, and we're going to do the same thing. You'd probably think that the guitar solo would be monophonic, but we are going to use polyphonic because there are some points where more than one note is being played. And I just find that in general, even if only one note is being played, guitar typically sounds better with the polyphonic mode as opposed to the other modes. So I don't want to make this too straight and too quantized sounding, so I'm not actually going to use the quantized feature at all. I'm just going to listen to the music and try to match up some of these points so that they match up with their grid. You can see here it's ahead of the grid here. And if we just pull this over to match up these notes to the grid a little bit better, it just musically and rhythmically, everything sort of locks together better. Let's go over to the lead here. Let me zoom in vertically a little bit here. And again, I'm just going to be referencing the guitar track up here for timing. Yeah, let's start there, right on the beat. So let's maybe go there. Let's put this on a loop. It sounds like a 16th note idea. Obviously, all of the 16ths aren't being picked up, but if I just lock the ones into the grid where they need to be that are showing up, the others should sort of fall into place. Cool. So this starts here, this ends here. So as you can see, it's a little bit more artistic here. You know, I'm just kind of going through and making creative calls. You know, even if, you know, the solo itself could probably just exist the way it was before. We're just tightening up certain points of the solo. Yeah, this tapping part needs to be way over here. And let's lock that up there. Let me listen to that one more time. I'm going to put these two right on the downbeat, and let's try putting that one on the downbeat. Let's see what that sounds like. Perfect. And let's move over here. Again, this is pretty far forward. And this looks like more 16th notes. There's that quick riff again. It's just doubling it up, just up an octave. So here we've got a little bit of a predicament. We need to match some of these points up with the rhythm parts, but keep in mind we didn't match everything up in this riff because it just made it sound robotic. So one of the things we can do is we can use our grid snap here to snap things in, but you can also, if you hold Control, you can match up some of the notes manually without snapping to the grid. So you can see this note right here is not right on the grid, but I can grab this flex marker down here, hold control, and match up the timing of this note to that note, and this note to that note, and so forth and so on. Yeah, this definitely needs to go on the grid. I think this is meant to go on the grid as well. Let's put all these downbeats on the grid. Put that on the grid. Put that on the grid and that on the grid. Then the very last riff, we'll match up all three of those notes. And if we wanted to even make like the tail end of the guitar solo longer, we can do it. We can pull it out like so. We can make things longer or make them shorter. Okay, so let's listen to that whole solo now and make sure that the timing sounds decent. Cool. So now let's talk about flattening all of these edits into the clips. Now, one way to do it is if you have two different regions on one track, is you can drag over both of them, hit J to join them. It'll create a new waveform out of them with all of the flex edits rendered into the new clip. So I'm going to do that for the guitar solo. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to grab my bar mode. I'm going to grab my marquee tool, and I'm going to cut out the space in between these edit points here. And I'm going to pull all of these up to one track. And then what I'm going to do is turn off my snap for a moment, delete my extra guitar part here. I'm just going to really get in real close and edit up all of these points. So again, I'm using my Shift Control key command to fade. Zoom over here. Let's find a good editing point. Let's find a good editing point here too. And here as well. And then we'll add fade to the end. So why didn't I add fades at the other points? Well, I wanted to show you another way to add batch fades on things. If you drag over a whole bunch of clips that are adjacent to each other, you can go up to your region parameters up here, and you can go down to fade in, fade out, and you can also change the fade out type instead of out to X for crossfade. And I'm just going to type in like 5 for 5 milliseconds, and it's going to put a fade on all of those points. So this is really helpful if you have like a whole bunch of fades. And then what I'm going to do is hit J one more time on all of these to join all of that together. And so now we no longer need flex on for that track because we've rendered all of the flex edits into the solo, into the fully edited solo. So let's give this a listen now. Cool, sounds great. So now let's render all of our flex edits into our regions for the guitar. Now the difference here is because there's only one region on each one of these guitar tracks. If you drag over these and hit J, nothing's going to happen because there's nothing to join together. There's two ways you can do this. One, you can click on the clip and you can hit Control B to bounce the regions in place, but that can create a new track. And there's a whole bunch of other issues and other things we have to deal with here. What I like to do is I just like to trick Logic into believing that we're joining two clips together. So I'll just use like the marquee tool or whatever just to like grab a little bit of the end of one of these clips. I just hit Option to drag it over and duplicate it. Then click on both of the clips on the track, hit J, and what it'll do is it will join those two clips together. And as a result, it'll actually also render all of the flex edits in place as well. So this is just my little way of tricking Logic into consolidating clips or consolidating regions on a track without having to use the bounce in place function. It's one of the functions from Pro Tools that I really love that Logic doesn't have. And then what you do is just go and delete the excess audio that you're not using. And there you go. And so now for our rhythm guitars, we no longer need the flex edits on either. Okay, so that is using flex time to tighten up musical timing in guitars, but you can use it on any other instruments. You can use it on voice as well. Speaking of voice, in the next video, I will record, probably off screen, I'll record the vocals to this song. And then what we'll do is we'll go in and we'll do some flex edits on the vocals, both flex time as well as a cool tuning feature called flex pitch that's built right into Logic. So that's what's coming up in part 7. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to check me out on social media, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Twitter, and you can find me on Patreon if you'd like to support me there. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.